Hey, Jamie here. Hope everybody's doing well today. It is Friday, July 10th. I am doing a live Q&A today. So this is going to be a stimulus Q&A about all things stimulus where you can come and ask your questions. I am streaming this live in 3 places right now. So we are in my Financial Literacy for Women Business Owners Facebook group. If you're not a part of it, come jump over there. We're having some great conversations about everything over there. I'm also streaming this live on my Balance CFO Facebook page and on my YouTube channel. So make sure you go over there and subscribe if you haven't already. So, hey guys, hope you're doing well. Give me a comment when you can hear me to make sure everything is working. Okay, cool. I see a couple people jumping in. Great. Hey guys, happy Friday. So some of you guys saw my live from Wednesday where I talked about my kind of new plan going forward. Previously in my Financial Literacy for Women Business Owners Facebook group, I've been answering pretty much all the questions that come in to this point. But now with over 26,000 people, that's getting a little bit tough. And my kids are back at home. So what I am planning on doing, I'm still engaging in that group quite a bit. I'm still going to be doing posts and updating you guys in there. And I'm going to continue to do my 10 a.m. on Wednesday, Central Time. I'm in Central Time. I'm outside of Nashville. So that's the language I speak. So 10 a.m. Central Time on Wednesdays, you will see me going live, usually on a topic, and then I'll take some questions at the end. And then I'm going to be adding this second time. So most Fridays, right around 1:30, depending on what time I can get my daughter down for a nap, I'm going to be going live just for a Q&A. Right now, it's going to be mainly stimulus related, so that I can make sure to be answering your questions. So if I don't answer your questions during the week in the group or things you're having trouble finding answers to in there, then come on over and say hi to us. Hey guys. Hey, Pammy. Hey, Caroline. Hi, guys. How are you guys doing? So feel free to start asking me your questions. Hi, Rolanda and Caitlin and Dahlia and Elisa. Awesome. We had a lot of people in here. Great. I'm glad. We've got people watching me in all different places. So that's good to see. So what we're talking about when I say stimulus, so we're talking about all the things that we've been talking about. We're talking about PPP. We're talking about EIDL. We are talking about unemployment. We're talking about new things that are happening through Congress. I want to make sure that you continue to be aware because there continue to be things that are evolving and changing and coming through, and we're waiting to kind of see on a few things what's going to happen. So feel free to ask your questions out there. I'm going to give you a couple of updates on things that I know. And actually, somebody just gave me, I can't see who you are. It just says Facebook user, but this is a great segue because this is something that I was going to mention. As of right now, there is not likely to be an extension. There are discussions happening. There are some people who are in favor of an extension to unemployment. I would be surprised if it was extended, at least in its current form. I think there has been concern about the fact that in some cases, the higher unemployment is making it hard for people to get workers back. And there's a bit of a disincentive to actually work. And so I think more than likely, they probably will not extend that in its current form. Will they do something else? Maybe. There are other things being talked about, but I think they are really wanting people to get hired back. They're really wanting to get those unemployment numbers down. And they know that part of the reason they're still up is because there's kind of an incentive right now to stay on unemployment in some cases. So we will see what happens with that. And it's really interesting because it's so different based on the state that you're in as well, right? So I don't know if there's going to be something that's going to be different state by state because some states are in a totally different place from a reopening standpoint than others. So this is where it gets really interesting to see what they're going to end up doing for people and how that's going to work. Okay, so Caitlin is asking a great question as well. Do we think they're going to be making PPP 150K and under fully forgiven? So what she means by that, so you always have the option to be fully forgiven for 150K and lower, but you have to apply, right? And there's an application process, and there's a potential that depending on what happens during that time frame, and if you don't strike off all the boxes, that you might have a portion that's unforgiven. What she's talking about is that the banks, right around, it must have been in, I'm trying to remember if it was May or June, the banks started to advocate, like a lot of the big banks kind of came together and started to advocate for blanket forgiveness for PPP loans that were under $150,000. What does that mean? That means that you likely would not have to do any paperwork. I don't know, there might be something you would still have to submit potentially that said, hey, we actually, adhere to the rules. I don't know. But blanket forgiveness would mean, look, any loan that was given out that was under $150,000 would be automatically forgiven. Yay, rah. And that actually is about 85% of the number of loans that were given out. Now, it's much less when you look at the total amount of loans, right? But when you look at the number of loans, about 85% of the loans that were given out were under $150,000. So you can tell that the banks have a very significant draw to wanting to get those automatically forgiven so that they don't have to deal with the paperwork. That's a ton of work for these small loans. And let me tell you, a lot of people think that the banks don't want to forgive your loan, or they're going to be looking for reasons not to forgive your loan. I'll say it once, I'll say it 1,000 times. These banks do not want your small loan sitting on their balance sheet for 5 years or 2 years, whichever one you have, at 1% interest. It is going to cost them a whole heck of a lot more to service that loan than it would if they could just get that reimbursement from the SBA and be done with it. They want to forgive you, you guys. They want to forgive you, okay? So I think that there's this feeling like there's a conspiracy and that they're going to be like pulling apart these applications. They're not, okay? They're not. They're really relying on the borrower to give the information. They did put out the easy form. So part of me thinks, you know what, maybe that was, Treasury's, okay, we won't make it such that it's blanket forgiveness because there's some unfairness there, especially for people who got loans that were probably too much in some instances, right? Some banks gave more than they should have. So is that fair then to penalize people who got the right amount or filled out the application correctly and then give extra forgiveness to these other banks? I don't know. But what they did was they came out with this easy form. So it's possible that they say, you know what, we're not going to do this blanket forgiveness because instead we have this easy form. It should be pretty easy as long as you can check one of those boxes. There's not the application process shouldn't be too bad, and it should take down the amount of work on the banks. But yet to be seen, there is a bill in Congress. I think it hasn't passed anything. It's just been introduced. I think it was introduced maybe last week. That would automatically forgive those loans $150K and under. I don't know at this point what the appetite is for them to pass it. The Senate, I believe, is in recess right now. I think they come back towards the end of July. So we probably won't see a lot of movement on many of these big things until they are back. I think it's maybe July 23rd, something like that they come back into session. So we're kind of in a waiting period right now where we'll have to see what the appetite is. If you are really in favor of this, it's never a bad idea to contact your congressman, right? You can there are lots of sites out there where you can go find who your local representatives are. You can find who your local congressmen are, and you can email them or call them and tell them that you are in favor of this, right? That's never, ever a bad thing to do. Similarly, Stephanie, any updates on second application for PPP? So again, this is another one of those things we're waiting to see. So what she's talking about is people who previously got PPP wanting to get a second round. So right now, they're still only open. They did extend PPP, so it was supposed to be done. You couldn't apply anymore past June 30th. Like 9 p.m. that night, they decided to extend it. So now it's extended through August 8th, which for a lot of people who were kind of waiting for that extra $600 to run out, and they kind of had that weird when is the right timing situation, this probably isn't so bad. Now, we don't know if the funds will last that long. Right now, it doesn't look like they're going to expire anytime like immediately soon. There's still a good amount left. But I could see potential for a run up at the end there, especially when it's confirmed that Congress is not going to be extending that $600, because then all of a sudden it makes a lot of sense for people to jump from unemployment straight to PPP. And PPP is great to have. A lot of people ask me this question of, can I get PPP and work? Absolutely, you can. So if you're like ramping back up at work and making some income, and maybe you wouldn't even be able to get unemployment anyway, PPP is a great next step on top of that to say, okay, I'm going to go from unemployment now to PPP, which now you can get your entire PPP forgiven. Even if you're a sole proprietor, you can pay yourself a full 2.5 months worth of salary, even if it's just you. So PPP can be a really good option for you in that scenario. But right now, they have not extended anything they've talked a little bit about a second round. I think they probably want to see what's left at the end of this. So if I were to bet, they're probably going to see, do we have funds left? If there's still like $100 billion in money left in PPP, and there's demand from people who already received and spent their PPP and it's long gone, and yet they're still suffering, there may be appetite for a second round. It likely will have more qualifications though, meaning the one proposal I saw said something like, I think if you were under 50% of your gross receipts from the same time period of last year, that you would be able to apply for a second one. So this would be for businesses that are very hard hit, and maybe even specifically to certain industries that have been really hard hit. But yet we are still kind of in this waiting space on whether anything is going to happen with that. Okay, let me see your questions. All right, got that one. Let's see. Okay, so your lender's not accepting applications any longer. Where would you go to find a new lender? So one of the great places, a lot of the fintechs, they're called, that's sort of like the name for these like technical companies like PayPal, Square, Bluevine, Cabbage. I don't know which of those are open right this second, but those tend to be ones that are good options, and they are, in most cases, they're processing really quickly. If you give them all the things that they need, they're processing really quickly. And if you're getting a bounce back for some reason, like, so some of them can't really take somebody that's a little bit different. Like, so for example, not all are set up to figure out how to take a partnership that has like 2 Schedule Cs. So you may have to kind of look around for a lender that will fit and understand you if you're not just a straight Schedule C, no employees or corporation, right? And if you're anywhere in between, some of these banks get a little bit confused, and so people are getting turned down. But you can try for one, and then if it doesn't work, don't get discouraged, go try somebody else, because they may be set up in a different way. And you can go ask in the group too. If you are a partnership with 2 Schedule Cs, go ask in the financial literacy group where people have had luck applying, because that can definitely be a good resource so that you don't have to kind of shop around. So April says Bluevine. Yeah, a lot of people have had really good luck with Bluevine for the most part. Let's see. As an independent contractor, umpire, referee, can I draw PPP if I already got EIDL, loan, and grant? Yes, you can. Now, you probably want to make sure that it makes sense, because the one thing I'll say here is, if your EIDL grant was more than what you could get for PPP, it probably doesn't make sense, because you do, as of right now, again, everything could change, but I don't see this one changing. As of right now, your EIDL grant gets subtracted off your PPP forgiveness. So let's say you got an EIDL grant of $1,000 and you would only be able to get a PPP loan of $1,500. You'd have to decide whether it was worth it to you, because really it's only an extra $500 at the end of the day. Now, how you would figure that out as an independent contractor, self-employed person, anyone who files a Schedule C with their taxes, go get your 2019 taxes. By the way, guys, clock is ticking. They're due in 5 days. Okay, 5 days from now, your tax return is due, or you need to file an extension and pay. But what you will do is you will get that Schedule C out of your 2019 tax return, go to line 31, that's your net profit, take that, divide by 12, multiply by 2.5. That equals 2.5 months of pay. That's what you can get as your PPP loan. That's the amount that can be fully forgiven as a self-employed person for PPP. So yes, 100%. It's great for independent contractors. A lot of people are just now realizing that they can get it. I'm always surprised how many sole proprietors, independent contractors are just now realizing that PPP could be a really good option for them. And especially if you're in that spot where you're not eligible, or you're worried about kind of PUA running up at the end of the month and not getting the extra $600, it's a great option for you guys. And it's free money as far as free money goes, right? Now, I know there's no such thing, but in general, no, they don't answer your call. That's true. But if you inundate them enough, hopefully they at least hear about the messages. They definitely typically aren't going to, though. Let's see. Yes. So okay, so you're self-employed, you don't have Schedule Cs, you file K1s. I'm assuming you're a partnership. Is that why? So if it's different if you're an S Corp or a partnership. If you're a partnership, 100%, you take your box 14A. That's the box you would use to calculate out what you could get for PPP. If you're an S Corp, it's your W-2 wages that you paid yourself. That's how much would count for your owner pay. So yes, regardless of what you are. Now again, K1s, some banks are just not doing a great job with that. You might want to find like a local credit union that you can actually talk to and explain. Because one thing I found in all of this, and you guys probably have too, is that banks just do not understand how these different types of entities work and how taxes work for these different entities. And sometimes you're being asked for reports that you don't even have because of the type of entity that you are. And for a long time, they were requiring payroll reports for people that didn't have payroll. So, that is something you may have to kind of shop around until you find a bank that understands, and make sure you get the full amount of your loan. Because I think a lot of people are getting kind of in an offer they know is not the amount they should be getting offered. And they're taking it anyway because they're, worried about not getting the loan. But when you do that, you can't get a second one right now. So make sure that they're giving you and you understand how they're calculating that loan amount, because it should always be 2.5 times average monthly payroll, including your own owner payroll. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so Caitlin says, if we have an employee resign because they moved, as long as we have a letter from them, are we safe on our employee number, or do we need to hire someone? So I have a whole video that talks about Safe Harbor. Make sure to go to my YouTube channel. It's just called Jamie Trull, and subscribe to that, and you will see the video that I did for employers on Safe Harbor. I also have it posted out in the group, I think under announcements. So you can find it there, because it gets a little bit tricky, I would say. It depends. So technically, you would need to then show that you couldn't hire someone else that was similarly qualified. During that time period, you would have to have some kind of proof of that, or proof that you tried, right? But there are other ways to get Safe Harbor that would make it such that you don't have to do that. So for example, one way that you can get Safe Harbor is if you can say, look, during your 8-week or your 24-week period, whichever one you are using, if you could not operate at your normal capacity because of safety rules, right? Like the rules around safety and social distancing and things like that. Not just because you had less in sales, but let's say you're a restaurant and you had to space out your employees, or you had to close down the inside of your restaurant, right? In those cases, that can get you Safe Harbor, in which case it doesn't matter what happens with your FTE count. So you have to really look into those Safe Harbor to understand everybody should be able to get their PPP loan forgiven though. I'll say it like a million times, because it's just knowing those little Safe Harbor rules that can get you to where you can get fully forgiven pretty much in any circumstance, unless you just don't spend any money on payroll at all, in which case you probably won't, right? But if you follow a couple of key things, you should be able to get the whole thing forgiven, especially now with the 24-week period. I agree, Jeff. I also like free money. Maybe not so much in this specific circumstance, but it's better than no free money, right? Let's see. How is EIDL calculated for self-employed sole proprietor? Okay. So some people have given a lot of ideas on how they believe that it is calculated. I have seen a variety of different things. It's a factor of your revenue minus your cost of goods sold, but what that factor is unclear. And in some cases, it also is taking into account your credit score, the type of business that you have. So it's not a clear calculation that they have been coming out with, right? Before all of this, when they used to offer EIDL loans, it would be 6 months worth of operating expenses, but that's not what it is in this case, because of the fact that they didn't even ask for operating expenses. So they don't even know what they are. So in some cases, it's like the exact amount of your gross profit. In some cases, it's 2 times your gross profit. In some cases, it's half. I mean, it's all over the board. So it's not super clear. Now, that's the EIDL loan. Importantly, the EIDL advance for a self-employed person with no employees is $1,000. You get $1,000 per employee, or $1,000 for yourself as an advance that is yours to keep, unless of course you also get PPP, and then you got to subtract it. So they won't let you have free money twice, unfortunately. Let's see. So I own a restaurant. I pay myself a check Then at the end of the month, I take out, can I include the profit too? So it depends on how you're set up. What you can use for owner pay is very much highly dependent on, are you an LLC? Are you a sole proprietor? Are you an S Corp? So if you're a Corp, an S Corp or a C Corp, only your W-2 wages to yourself will count for forgiveness. If you are not an S Corp, if you're a sole proprietor or an LLC, then that calculation is done based on your profit from last year. It's 2.5 months worth of your 2019 profit that you can be forgiven for. So it really is dependent on what you are. Okay. How would you prove you use PPP loan on payroll for yourself as an Uber driver? So this is one of my favorite topics because y'all who have been around for a while, I'll get on a soapbox a little bit about this one. Let me tell you why it's silly. Here, I'll leave your question up, actually, Nick. So in the Treasury guidance for sole proprietors, they say that forgiveness is based off of your Schedule C, meaning your Schedule C, like if you pick the 24 weeks, which I recommend as a self-employed person so you can get the whole thing forgiven as owner pay, your 24 weeks divided by 12, your net profit, Schedule C line 31 net profit, divided by 12 times 2.5. That's how much you get. That's how much you should be forgiven for. Regardless of what you pay yourself, right? Like it should be based on a calculation. Nowhere in the Treasury guidance does it say that it's going to make you prove payroll to yourself. It says Schedule C is support. Will banks make you prove you paid yourself? There will be some that will. I almost guarantee it because, again, like I said earlier, banks don't understand these entity structures. And so for them, they're like, okay, we just need proof of your payroll. Well, a lot of Uber drivers, a lot of independent contractors don't even have a business bank account, right? Because technically you're not required to. It is best practice to do. So if you don't have one, this is a great time to go get one set up, okay? So this could be a really good time. Just go get ASLO. It's free, totally free. No minimums, no anything, no fees. ASLO.com. It's a full online bank for businesses, okay? But in a lot of cases, you probably just have a personal account. So how do you prove you pay yourself when you only have one bank account to begin with and they deposited it into your bank account, into your personal bank account? It's silliness, right? Or let's say you do have another bank account, but what if you're a sole proprietor and you have expenses you have to pay for your business, right? Like you have to pay your insurance for your business, right? But what if you need to leave the money there? Are they going to force you to show that you took that money out? And then what are you going to do? You're just going to put it back in, right? So to me, it's all silly because that's not how sole proprietors pay taxes. They don't pay taxes based on their, they don't pay taxes based on how much they take out of their business. They pay taxes on their profit. So it's silly to make a sole proprietor show you, hey, look, here's how I paid myself. But I think best practice, because we're going to run into banks that just do not understand that concept and they want to see that you wrote a check to yourself. They want to see that you did a transfer from your business bank account to your personal. So go ahead, if you don't have one, set up a business bank account. Like I said, ASLO is great, or any other one. Credit unions are good too, local ones. And put all the money in there and then write a check to yourself. I mean, I'm not kidding. It's total silliness. But so April says, talk to a few already and they all want proof. But I don't even think they understand what proof they want to see. Yeah, that's the exact thing. So you ask them, you're like, okay, well, what proof? And they're like, well, proof you paid yourself. Like, well, what does that mean though? They can't answer your question. So I don't think they even really know. So they're going to ask you guys for something, probably a bank statement that just shows the cash, outage, whatever it is going to be useful. I will fight tooth and nail that I think it's the stupidest thing in the entire world to have to do, but I guarantee you, y'all, they're gonna ask. Okay, let's see. That was April. Okay. All right, can't see who this is. If you have an EIDL loan, are you not allowed to purchase larger pieces of equipment or increase owner draws, or can you just not use EIDL funds for those things? Can you not do those things at all while you have it? Okay, so you can for those things, yes. So owner draws, I'll put that aside. Let's talk about fixed assets first. Yes, if you have the EIDL, you can buy fixed assets. You just can't use EIDL money for it. So what's a fixed asset? It's like buying machinery, equipment, things like that. Things that are long-term in nature, things you would typically depreciate into your tax return over time. Those are things that you're not supposed to buy. Those are kind of more growth type things. So they don't want you to purchase that. They just want you to use EIDL mainly for like operating type expenses. Okay. Now, draws, if you are a sole proprietor LLC, you can totally do draws. If you're using the EIDL money, then yes, I would not pay yourself more than what you typically would. There's not a hard and fast line there. It's not like PPP where it's based on an equation, but I would look at what you normally would pay yourself from your business and probably do something similar. Ultimately, like if you normally would pay yourself $2,000 a month, don't pay yourself $10,000 a month, right? Like that's not going to look too good with your EIDL. Plus, guys, you're going to have to pay it back anyway. So that doesn't even sound like a great idea to do. Now, if you're an S Corp and a C Corp, there's some discussion here. My read on the wording on the limits of distribution of assets to me says if you're an S Corp or a C Corp, you really shouldn't be giving, distributions. You should only be taking your W-2 salary, which is what you're paid for compensation for services, right? Basically, it says like you need that's what you can use it for. I don't know that you can really be doing draws. Now, in some cases, some people have said, well, if the draw is normal and if it's no more than you normally would have, maybe, but a lot of the CPAs and small business lawyers that I have talked to have said, no, you really shouldn't be doing draws as a corp. You should just be paying yourself via salary, and then maybe you can increase your salary if you want to, but that's also going to increase your taxes, remember, because you only pay payroll taxes on the salary part of what you take. So, it's kind of one of those things with corps where you have to sort of decide if the risk is worth it. And again, if that's really important to you, go consult with your own CPA or small business lawyer about it and get their opinion and kind of document what you're going to do with that. But that's sort of my read is kind of a conservative one where I don't think you're really supposed to be doing that. Reason being because really the draws that you're taking as a corp are investment income. So should you really be giving owners investment income while you have an emergency loan outstanding? That feels strange, right? Okay. Let's see. Yeah, so this is not hasn't happened yet. I talked about this in the beginning where this is a maybe. They might do this. It's been just proposed into Congress. Banks are advocating for it, but we have yet to see that that's going to be the case. And even if that's the case, I do still think they probably will want some kind of certification from people that they spent it the way they were supposed to, i.e. that they spent it on payroll, rent, utilities, etc. Right? Because what they don't want is for you to be spending that on whatever, right? It's for a very specific purpose. So I do think that they would still make you certified in that. I don't want people to think like, okay, great, that just means I can do whatever I want with this money. I would not advise that. And they can always come back. Remember that, guys. They can always come back to this, and they will be for a long period of time. Now, not everybody who got one, there's some fear that everybody who got one's going to get audited. That's not true. But you should keep support for all of this for at least probably 3 years, maybe even more. Let's see. Okay. Sole proprietors. Okay. So, hey, Mary, sole proprietors should use the 24 weeks. Do you have an opinion on S Corp? You can do either vendor and childcare centers. It does not hurt you to go to 24 weeks other than watch that video I did on Safe Harbor so that you know the rules. Because you don't have to take the entire 24 weeks, you guys, too. That's a question I get all the time. If you take it and you spend it in 12 weeks, you can apply for forgiveness if your bank has a process, which, of course, most of them do not. Probably because a lot of them are trying to figure out if there's going to be automatic forgiveness, right? So you can take it and spend it over like 12 weeks or 14 weeks. The timing of when you apply does matter, that when you apply for forgiveness, and the FTE count you have at that time matters. And that's what counts towards safe harbor. I'm not going to get into all the ins and outs because I did a whole video going over it. Again, make sure you find that video. It's on my YouTube. But if you haven't been able to spend the money, then yes, like if you already had planned to spend the money in 8 weeks, well, might as well get the whole thing over with, right? Then I would, if it's already been spent and your 8 weeks is done, then apply and just use the 8 weeks. If, however, you haven't used it all, for sure, I would extend to the 24 weeks and then watch that safe harbor video to make sure that you can get it fully forgiven. Okay. It depends. If you are a corp, yes. Likely if you're a sole proprietor LLC, no, because those are not business expenses on your Schedule C or on your K-1 for LLCs or sole proprietors. Okay, a couple more questions here because I wanted to keep this to 30 minutes. I might have missed some here. Let's see. On PPP app, when it asks for a number of employees as a partnership. Okay, so for the PPP app, it doesn't really matter. I think they're wanting. So the funny thing about this is that when all of these applications are asking for number of employees, none of them are telling you what that means. None of them are saying, is that including owners? Is that including owners only for corps? What are you supposed to put there? And I just think, and even like, does it include part-time, like, because they don't say full-time equivalent. So for the PPP application, don't worry. What you put on there is not going to be what they're going to measure you against. I think that was a concern that people had. They're like, oh shoot, I put 10, but I didn't realize it was supposed to be FTEs. Well, it wasn't. It just said number of employees. What they're trying to quote on that, by the way, you guys, that's when they're out there telling about how that the PPP loan program saved X amount of jobs. That's where they're pulling those numbers from. So I think what they actually want for you to put on PPP is include you both, I believe. That's my assumption. Even though technically, as if you are a partnership or a multi-member LLC, you guys aren't technically employees of your own business unless you're a corp. But I think they want you to put yourself down. Same thing with EIDL. It was a little weird too. Do you include yourself? Do you not? I think it doesn't really matter because you end up getting the same amount. If you put 0 or you put 1, you got $1,000 for the advance. So it didn't matter either way. Okay. Let's see. My business hasn't reopened and won't soon. If all my employees leave, can I hire new smokers? I assume you mean new employees. I don't know if I'd hire smokers. I mean, you can. But I wouldn't necessarily specifically target them. Yeah, you can hire new employees. So it doesn't have to be the same ones at all when they're doing the FTE count. It just has to be the same FTE count. And again, you can get around the FTE count in certain instances if, for example, safety measures kept you from opening in the same capacity and things like that. Okay, so go check out my video on Safe Harbor. It's an important one. Let's see. Oh, yes, you corrected yourself. Yes, employees, not smokers. Good to know. Yeah, you can totally hire new ones. I thought we were supposed to be putting PPP in a personal account as a sole proprietor. So should I be keeping it in my business account? So PPP money, in theory, PPP money should have been deposited into your business account, and then you should be paying yourself from your business account into your personal account to show that transfer of funds. If you got it into your personal account, I think it's totally silly, but you might want to put it in your business account and then transfer it back. I know, the stupidest thing you've ever heard of, right? Yeah, it is. Let's see. Yes. Yeah. So if you stretch 24 weeks, you can use it all just for payroll. Yep. Yes, we talked about that at the beginning. As of right now, no plans to extend. I would be surprised if it extends in its current form. They may do something else, however. LLC, can I work during 24 weeks? 100% you can. I have 2 employees and I'm an owner. Or do I have to use formula related to line? So you do use that. That's for forgiveness. You can pay yourself more than that though. So importantly, you can pay yourself whatever the heck you want. But you will be forgiven for 2.5 times your monthly average payroll cost. You can absolutely be making money. That is not a problem on PPP. It's not the same as unemployment where you're not supposed to be working. You can totally be making money. You can and paying yourself with PPP. So you can pay yourself more. It's just maxed out at what they will forgive you for. Oh no. So I have not heard of people having a whole heck of a lot of luck with this. You will not. You can call and tell them that you meant to, okay? Now, if you got PPP, again, if you got PPP, then I wouldn't worry about it. It's probably not worth it to go and try to get this EIDL grant because you're gonna have to subtract it from your PPP forgiveness anyway. But if you didn't, and if you don't plan on getting PPP, call the SBA. I used to have the number memorized. It's now like flittered from my brain. But Google SBA Disaster Line, call that number. You might have to ask for a tier 2 rep potentially. I don't know if that's still a thing, but I know it was for a while. And tell them you didn't check the box, but you want to, and can you still get it? And they'll probably tell you, they'll make the note in your file. I haven't heard of a lot of people having luck with it, but you never know. Can you use your EIDL for the unforgiven amount of PPP? So do you mean EIDL loan? I assume you mean the loan. Can you pay off the loan, the unforgiven amount of PPP loan? I would not think so, because technically that would be payoff of long-term debt, even though PPP isn't all that long-term. But I don't think you'd be able to pay off the whole thing. You may be able to make your payments with it over time, but I don't think you can pay off the entire thing at once, because that would be payoff of long-term debt. Okay, last question I'm going to take, and you guys, again, keep putting your questions into the group. I do go in there from time to time and answer some questions now. I'm just not doing it as frequently because sleep is a good thing to have every once in a while. Okay, so my state put this statement out on how to report PPP. Yes, PPP money is considered wages. You will need to report the gross income hours this payment represents on your weekly benefit payment. Can you help me understand? Are they looking for the total amount, and what do we, okay. So you're asking about PPP and PUA and how the heck you claim it. So here's the thing. Some states don't address this at all. So it's up to the state. So importantly, one common misconception is people thought if I take PUA, it's going to impact my PPP forgiveness. It's not. So they don't ask that question on the PPP forgiveness, okay? What it can do, though, is your PPP, getting a PPP, can impact your PUA. All right, so for a long time, it was you can't get both, you can't get both, you can't get both. Well, then that's kind of been walked back a little bit to be like, okay, well, you can get both, but what you pay yourself and what will be forgiven from PPP should be claimed on your PUA certifications that you do weekly. So similar to if you had earned income, you would claim that income. I think what this is saying, and again, different states are different. So some states talk about it, some states don't talk about it. In the case that you can't find anything that your state says about it, I think you could be justified to say, you know what, I'm going to take, even though I got PPP today, I'm going to take my PUA for the next 3 weeks and then start my PPP payouts to myself over the next 2.5 months. Because remember, owners get 2.5 months worth of pay to themselves. And you could take it over that time period. I think taking it over 2.5 months or roughly 10 weeks is probably the most appropriate thing to do when you're talking about aligning that with your PUA. You can't, a lot of people are like, well, can I just take it all in 1 week and then I only miss out on 1 week of unemployment benefits? No, that's generally not what you're supposed to do unless your state has it set up that way. So some states, they're asking you for the total amount you got to pay yourself, and then they're accounting it all in 1 week. It really varies. But I think what most states that I've seen are doing that do address it are saying, okay, you have to claim it over the time you pay yourself. And some of them make you start that time period when you get it. So in that case, I think what this is getting at, your state is saying, okay, you got PPP and now you're going to claim it over, say, that 10 weeks, if you're doing the full 2.5 months, right? In equal installments over the 10 weeks against your amount. And that will either reduce or entirely eliminate your PUA benefits depending on how much, what your state limits are and how much your PPP is. So some people can get both, right? Like some people, maybe their PPP is so low that they're still eligible for some state benefits, which means they still get the extra $600 too. And then you're like jackpot, right? But for others, it could completely invalidate it, which is why if you can wait to claim it, then that's really like the best. That's how you maximize it the best. But not everybody's going to be able to do that. So don't, at this point, I would not pass up on PPP because you're worried about PUA, because PUA's only got a couple of more weeks really left of that extra 600. But you want to do the calculation for what your PPP would be to make sure it makes sense. Okay. All right. So I'll put this one up just because I understand this sentiment. So there's so many unanswered questions. There are a lot of things that don't have answers. I would not be driven by fear, right? Because here's the thing with all of this, you guys, okay? They are not going to go after people for the most part, especially not for like jail or repossessing your, the people who take this in good faith and try their best to do the right thing and have some documentation around what they did, right? They're not coming after you. Okay. Like, could you be forced to have to pay back a portion that you accidentally used inappropriately, or maybe you accidentally thought you could get PPP and unemployment at the same time, and they say, no, you got to pay back some of those unemployment benefits? Maybe. Are they going to throw you in jail? No. Now, if you don't have a business and you went and got an EIDL advance for a business that is not real, I've heard of people doing this. Apparently there are YouTube videos on how to do this. Scary. Okay. Yeah, I probably wouldn't do that, right? Or even if you have a business and you got a PPP loan and you used it to buy a Tesla, probably not such a good idea. Like, those are going to be, when I've seen the fraud cases, and they've already had some, they are people who are fabricating documents. They are intentionally using the money incorrectly. They're lying on their certifications. They are it's all like they're using the money completely out of, to buy like jewelry and crazy things. So I don't want people, there's a lot of fear out there on the internet, you guys. I am not a fear monger. I'm not like, if you need this money for your business, go get this money. Don't be afraid. Now, think about getting into debt. That should always be something that you're thinking about. And does that make sense to you, right? But when we're talking about money that can be forgiven and most likely will be forgiven, don't like be afraid to use that. Okay. Like, I want you to have there's been so much worry and fear around this, and I understand it, but you guys, this stuff is here to help. They're not trying to get you. Okay. They're not trying to like trap you. They're really not. They're really not. It's going to be okay. All right. It's going to be okay. So take what you need. If you don't need it, awesome. But if you do, don't be afraid, because it's going to be okay. All right. Okay. So I am, okay, here we go. So almost driven by, I can't see who this is, but driven by fear not to apply for PPP. And you're so glad you did. A lot of people were scared of the debt, and they were scared they weren't going to get forgiven and all of this. But I mean, you can get this money and it can be such a help to you, but you got to let go of some of that fear. And I really think that all the new things, the new changes that they're making are only going to make it easier for people to get forgiven. I fully believe that. Like I said, the banks don't want these loans. They don't want it, right? Now, maybe the ones that are in the millions, yeah, maybe they wouldn't mind holding on to those loans, but they don't want your $15,000 loan on their books. They don't want it at 1% interest. So they want you to be forgiven. They're going to encourage you to get forgiven on these. Okay. All right. You guys are awesome. Oh, one other update I wanted to make for you guys. I was reading about this today. There is the possibility for a second kind of round of stimulus checks. So, our $1,200 that we got earlier, there is a possibility for another round of this. It probably will have a lower income level though. So I've heard of, 40,000 as one of the thresholds. I don't know if that's just single and it'd be double that, married, family, I don't know. But they likely would be doing another one. That might be what they do instead of expanding the extra $600 as a way to kind of give lower income people that money, but not disincent going back to work. They also might give bonuses for returning to work. So that's something they've been talking about too, is for people who've been on unemployment to get them off and go back to work. They may give return to work bonuses. All of that is yet to be seen. Again, Senate doesn't come back until July 23rd. So we'll see kind of in the, end of July, beginning of August. I'll be watching to see what happens, what things are being discussed and passed. And yeah, I mean, all of that. So, so keep a lookout. Keep coming back here. I will be back here for a Q&A 1:30 most Fridays. So mark your calendars, and then 10 a.m. Central on Wednesdays. I'm also going to be talking about different topics and taking some of your questions. So you guys are awesome. And yeah, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.